Okay, welcome. Let's go ahead and call to order the February 5th meeting of the Historic Preservation Commission. Can we have the roll, please?
Yes. Commissioner O'Day.
Present.
Commissioner Haberman.
Here.
Commissioner Terrick.
Here.
Chairman Lane.
Here.
Commissioner Norton.
Here.
Commissioner Jacoby.
Here.
Commissioner Barnard.
Here.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. First order of business is approval of the January 7 meeting minutes. Do any commissioners have any comments or corrections? If not, I'd entertain a motion.
So moved.
All right, move to approve. Do I have a second?
A second.
Okay, so a motion to approve from Commissioner Jacoby and a second from Commissioner Terrick. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Nope, those minutes are approved. Next, we have a report from the chair. I don't have a ton. I will note that next week we do have the Saving Places Conference. I'll be in attendance, and I know a handful of the commissioners will as well, so excited for that. You'll note that our council liaison, Marsing, is not present. He did send a note just a bit before this evening, which I think you now have been copied on, but in case anyone is not aware, I'll just run through the highlights. So I guess his wife had a baby girl on Sunday, and so they're home, and he's in that fishbowl again. So he did want to make a couple of notes, and he probably would have said this at the end of the meeting, but I'll just handle them here. So he did make a note that there are changes to the board and commission appointment process coming. In essence, it sounds like the council is not going to interview candidates at all, and it's just going to be a little mini committee like we had and a council liaison that'll handle it from here on out. But it sounded like if any commissioners had comments about that process, he'd be willing to entertain them and pass them on. The council is also planning to be reviewing the liaison roles and essentially how active they should be versus observing and so on. He said he'd like some feedback on your thoughts. So again, this is just more like to make a note of this and to point it out for everybody to take a minute to think about that. And perhaps this is something you could offer as feedback during our retreat. He also made a note about the City of Longmont flag being redesigned as a part of America 250. So if anybody has any opinions about that, I don't know that would necessarily be something that the full commission would handle, or I think that's maybe outside of our wheelhouse, but he's asking for any feedback you might have. And lastly, relative to the same, America 250, Colorado's 150, they're having a discussion about the celebration, and he's just passing on some information about kind of different plans for that, and if you have any thoughts about how best to celebrate that milestone. So more, I think, open-ended questions for commissioners, not something we'd necessarily handle here. But that's the gist of it, and please take a minute to review his email when you have a chance. So that's pretty much all I have. So next we'd go on to communications from HPC staff. I know we have a presentation on ex parte, but Jennifer, do you have any, just kind of a summary of other items?
Sure, I have a few things. I did include an overview in the packet of some items going on. We did not have any administrative certificates of appropriateness or tax credit applications in January. We do have one certificate of appropriateness under review that will be at the public public hearing at the March 5th meeting. The other item, as an information item, the LDDA is making progress on their downtown historical marker program, and so I included information from them as far as final design, what type of information will be included, as well as their locations throughout downtown. So I think it's part of their placemaking and wayfinding program. So I think it's a nice addition. One other note on Saving Places Conference, if anyone hasn't received any information from them or has any questions, just let me know and I'll see what I can wrangle. And as well on Friday at the conference, I will be participating in a panel discussion with Lindsay Flewelling. Sorry, I always flub her name. And a few other CLG representatives, just kind of talking through CLG operations, etc. So that'll be Friday afternoon. So we'll see you guys next week. And I do apologize for my foot up on a chair, but I may have sprained my ankle about an hour ago.
All good, and sorry to hear. Any commissioners have questions for staff before we get on to town attorneys? Nope. No? Okay. Thanks for the update. And yeah, thanks for including that LDDA package. That was exciting to see.
They've been working on it for a long time, so
Yeah.
it's nice to see it come to fruition. And next up, Jeremy Terrell, who is our esteemed general counsel or city attorney, will be talking to us a little bit about quasi-judicial open meetings, records laws, since we have a couple new commissioners and it's been a while since we've had a refresher. So take it away, Jeremy.
Thank you, Jennifer, and good evening, Chair Lane, members of the commission. Jeremy Terrell, Senior Assistant City Attorney. I looked at my records, and it's been 3 years since I last gave this presentation to you all, believe it or not. So I figured it's time for a refresher, and I know it's listed as ex parte, and we'll talk about that in the quasi-judicial sense. But I wanted to go ahead and talk about open meeting and open records laws along with our ethics ordinance. So there's our agenda for this conversation, and please feel free to stop me with questions, throw something at me, wave your hand, whatever you feel like. But there'll also be time for questions at the end as well. First, talking about the Colorado Open Records Act, or CORA. It was passed in 1963. The idea is that we should have an open and transparent government, and to that respect, if there's a government record, it should be open and accessible for members of the public to see. It's the people's government, so we should be able to know what is happening behind the curtains, if you will. This law does apply to municipal governments and home rule municipalities, which includes the city of Longmont. And the starting place of the law is that any paper, electronic, physical record in the custody or control of the city of Longmont is open to inspection and subject to disclosure. So this includes everything like Jennifer's emails, Melanie's emails, any faxes we receive, any documents filed with the planning department, anything like that is all an open record by default. The Act defines record as any writing made or maintained or kept by the city of Longmont in the course of official city business. So, like I was saying, Jennifer's emails are, unless it's a note to herself to pick up her cat from the vet. That wouldn't be an open record by default because it's not for official city business, but you know, we kind of tell employees, don't put it on your personal calendar unless you want to be open record, or at least for someone to look at it to see if it's an open record. The Act does use the term writing, but it is more expansive. It does include email, Outlook calendar invites, text messages on a city cell phone, any maps or contracts, notes. Pretty much the location doesn't matter. If it's in the city's records, it's a record. In the context of CORA with the commission, so if you're emailing staff or communicating with each other about commission business, know that it is subject to CORA. So the general test we have at the city attorney's office is if you don't want to see it in the newspaper, probably pick up the phone and talk about it instead of putting it in writing. That's the general rule. We try to keep our emails professional, knowing that members of the public could be reading it. We just ask you to do the same when communicating with staff, and just be mindful of what you're saying in an email, knowing that it could be read by anyone. Now, the kind of the corollary to CORA is Open Meetings Law, or OML. So similarly, while we can't do written business in private, we can't make policy decisions in private either. A meeting is defined as any gathering by elected officials or board or commissions to discuss public business. And meeting is defined broadly. It's in person like we have tonight. It's also by phone. It could be by Zoom or Teams. It could be over email, text messages, or any other form of communication. Now, the main thing with open meeting laws, it does have to be a demonstrated link between the meeting and the policy-making powers of the governmental entity, and it doesn't include chance meetings or social gatherings. So if the commission has a barbecue that I'm not invited to after tonight's meeting, as long as you guys don't talk about commission business, you're fine. If you start talking about commission business, pretend I'm there and yelling at you to stop doing that because that's an open meeting law violation. Unless we notice that ahead of time, which of course we did not. Open meeting law does say that it has to be 3 or more members of a board or commission to trigger it. So if Chair Lane and Commissioner Norton are talking about commission business outside of here, it's technically not an open meeting law violation. I would recommend waiting to save it for the public hearing, public meeting, so everyone can hear what you're talking about and understand what you're saying. But it's not a technical violation. It has to be 3 or more to actually constitute an open meeting. And what open meeting law does require is that if we're going to have a meeting of 3 or more members to discuss policy business, it does have to be made public so public can attend. And we have to give full and timely notice, which has been interpreted to mean 24 hours and specific agenda information when possible. Sometimes we'll have to have a meeting in fewer than 24 hours. That's fine, but we have to give as much time as possible and as much specific information as possible. And the law does require that we take minutes and promptly record them, which is why we have our recording secretary at these meetings. There are certain exceptions to open meeting law and to CORA itself. So the Open Records Act that allows for certain private discussions behind closed doors. The big one that might come up for the commission, though I don't think it has in the last 3 years, would be an executive session. And that is a chance for an executive session for attorney-client privilege communications. So if I needed to give attorney-client privilege communications to advise on legal risks and liabilities for the commission or the city of Longmont to the commission, we could have what is called an executive session where it is closed door and members of the public are not allowed to attend. Similarly, if I need to send an email to the commission to give legal advice, that would be an exception to CORA. So my emails to the commission and staff in my role as the attorney for the city and the commission, those are privileged as long as I'm communicating legal advice, and they would be not subject to the open records requirements. If for any reason one of you think you need legal advice, please let Jennifer or Melanie know, and they'll communicate with me and work with me to make sure that we can have an executive session, or at least discuss if we need an executive session or not. Or you're free to email me as well. Shifting gears, we do have Amendment 41, and I want to let you know the number did change this year. So Amendment 41 is the gift ban by the state of Colorado and the Colorado Constitution, and it prohibits government officials from accepting any gift valued in excess of $50 from any person in a calendar year. As of January 1, you can take an extra $25. It's up to $75 now for Consumer Price Index adjusted. So that's new for 2026. We're all very excited that you can have gifts. And the main thing is, if someone approaches you and tries to offer you a gift, I think the best course of action is to reject it if it's to influence or somehow affect your ability to vote. Even if it's less than $75, I like to think we'd do better than the minimum requirements of the law. I would just recommend just saying, thanks, but no thanks, I can't accept it. Gift does include cash, honoraria, travel, entertainment, or special discounts. There's an exception for conferences where you're scheduled to speak. So if the Saving Places conference provides Jennifer with a small gift certificate to a local restaurant in the city of Denver, for speaking at the conference, that's fine. Similarly, if you get a meal there, that's also fine. Unsolicited tokens of appreciation or trivial value is also fine. So if you get a plaque for speaking, that's fine, even if the plaque was more than $75, but I hope they didn't spend more than $75 on a plaque. This one is new from when I last spoke to you on this topic in 2023. So in 2024, Council did pass an ethics ordinance, and they applied it to themselves along with any board or commission that acts in a quasi-judicial fashion, which at times does include the Historic Preservation Commission. It also includes our Planning and Zoning Commission and the Board of Adjustment and Appeals if they ever have enough people to be constituted again. Ethics ordinance says that you cannot use confidential information gained in the course of your work on the commission to further personal or financial interest. If you, for some reason, you do have a conflict, so if you are serving as an advisor on something that may come before the commission or before the city of Longmont, you can't use your role as a commissioner to seek influence, either directly or indirectly, city or employees. So, for example, if you're a lawyer and you're doing business against the city, you can't say, I'm going to mess up the Historic Preservation Commission if you don't help me with this, or I'm a commissioner on the Historic Preservation Commission, you have to help me with this faster than anyone else. Those will all be conflict of interest in violation of our ethics ordinance. And similarly, you can't request special treatment for yourself or your immediate family members. Those are the highlights from ethics ordinance. I do recommend reading it if you have not. I think I sent it around to the commission when it first got passed, and I'm happy to have resent it out knowing that we have some new commissioners, just so everyone can read it, because it does apply to everyone. Now we're getting into quasi-judicial and ex parte communications. So in limited circumstances, the Historic Preservation does act in a quasi-judicial capacity. And what that means is that the Historic Preservation Commission is asked to act similar to a judge in a court of law. For the Historic Preservation Commission, we have three circumstances where it's quasi-judicial. One is on certificates of appropriateness. Another is on the decision to award tax credits. And the last is for certificates of hardship. In those circumstances, the Historic Preservation Commission is applying existing criteria to a specific property that affects someone's property rights or property interests. And what courts have said is that in those circumstances where you're applying existing criteria to a specific property and it's affecting their interests, we have to be extra careful in how we're approaching that situation. And the law requires that we have those decisions in a hearing, that advance notice is given, and that there's a reasonable opportunity for interested persons to present evidence or argument. Those are the essential, what we call due process in the legal world. It's the protections and safeguards to ensure that the applicant, along with members of the public, receive a fair hearing when property rights or property interests are at stake. In those circumstances, so again, appropriateness, hardship, and economic incentives, Historic Preservation Commission should and must apply the applicable criterion-based decision based solely upon what's in the record before it. And what that includes is the staff and applicant report and presentation. It includes also any community input received from notice of the hearing or at the hearing. So that could be letters or emails sent to Jennifer, the staff liaison, as advance and included in the packet, along with any sort of community input received at the hearing itself. Where we can get in trouble with quasi-judicial proceedings is ex parte communications. And ex parte communications means anything said outside of that record. So the record, again, being the staff packet that you'll receive in advance, the applicant's material, and any comments made at the public hearing. So ex parte communications would include conversations that happen between members of the public and commissioners that are not on the record. So it could be a chance encounter at a grocery store where you talk to a property owner who's going to appear before the commission or has an interest in a historic property that's going to fall under one of the quasi-judicial applications before the commission, and it doesn't make it into the record. We don't like this because it doesn't allow for fair and impartial decision-making, because not everyone got to hear that evidence or some sort of consideration that came before you. We want members of the public, along with the applicant, to be able to hear what's being said to the commission and understand what the commission is making their decision on, based off of. In general, if you receive if you're contacted by members of the public about a quasi-judicial proceeding outside of that hearing, my general advice is to, hey, send a written comment to Jennifer or Melanie or the planning staff. We'll make sure it gets into the packet, or come to the hearing and talk to us then. You'll have an opportunity here, and the applicant can address your concerns, and you can hear what the commission's concerns are as well. Ex parte communications can be bad if it is a quasi-judicial proceeding. Courts have found that that is improper, and it's legal grounds for overturning a decision. That means that we'll have to go back and redo the hearing, and it also means the city of Longmont could be subjected to attorney fees or costs. So bad all around if it occurs. If it does occur, whether it's advertent or inadvertent, there are ways to fix it. If it's a limited, so if you're bumping into someone in the grocery store, they start talking to you about something, you don't know what they're talking about, and then you realize, oh, I shouldn't be talking to you about this. You stop them, say, hey, come back to the hearing, send an email to Jennifer or Melanie or planning staff, make it in the packet. I can't talk to you about this. Ideally, at that point at the hearing, you'll come back and say, hey, so-and-so ran into me, started talking to me about it. As soon as I knew it was about this project that I'm not supposed to talk about outside the hearing, I stopped him. Here's what he said beforehand. I can be fair and impartial still having that very limited interaction. That's what we call that's what we call disclosing on the record. And if it's a limited interaction like that, disclosing on the record is a proper way of curing any ex parte communication problem. On the flip side, if you're talking to someone having coffee and they don't tell you the address and you're having an hour-long conversation about it, and then you realize, oh man, that was ex parte communication, I shouldn't have done it. And it's a long conversation, if it's an extensive conversation, my advice be recuse yourself from that agenda item because it's hard to recap everything that was said over that hour-long conversation. That's the general advice. If you ever find yourself in a situation where you had an ex parte communication and you're not sure if it's something that can be remedied with that limited disclosure on the record, or if it requires recusal, or if it was ex parte at all, I'm a great point of contact for that. I'm happy to discuss that issue with you. It is each commissioner's decision to make whether or not they need to disclose or recuse, but I'm one of the resources available to help you make that informed decision. And that was my last slide. So I'm happy to take questions. Keeping in mind this is a public hearing, it's not an executive session for attorney-client privilege advice. I'm happy to answer more generalized questions as opposed to specific questions.
Sure. Thank you for that. I think that was a really great refresher for those of us who've been around for a while, and I'm sure everybody knew is very worthwhile. I can say in the pretty long time I've been on this, we've never had an executive session at HPC. I've even talked about having one, so it's a pretty, I don't know how, it's not a very big occurrence here. Any commissioners have questions? Anything else you want to go? All right. So,
Cool.
In essence, if three of us run into each other next week at Saving Places, we should not be talking about agenda items, past or future, right? Like that's really sort of the essence of it all.
Yep. Keep it to the weather, keep it to the conference, but don't talk about the commission business.
Right. All right. Thank you very much. Appreciate
You're
that. Okay. Next, we have public invited to be heard for anything that's not on the agenda. And seeing no other public, I'm going to go ahead and close that portion of the meeting. We do not have any items for public hearing, so we'll move on to our new business item, which is a presentation on the Longmont Gateway North Annexation Preservation Plan. Jennifer?
Sure. I'm going to give an overview, and the applicant, Frank DeSiena, is here as well, and Chris Niels, thank you. So they're here from the applicant team to answer specific questions. So this is a similar situation to the Beaupre Farm item that we discussed a couple months ago. In this case, this is a proposed annexation. This is on the north end of town. The packet includes an overview of the request and a summary of the reports, etc. And it also includes the full historic report from AK Pioneer Consulting that was done in 2025, as well as a earlier historic building inventory from 91. Also included would be a statement from the applicant, as well as the end of the packet includes existing conditions on the property now, so some photographs of the buildings. So this particular site is a little over 26 acres. It is northwest of Highway 287 and Park Ridge Avenue. It's basically right across the highway from Walmart, just a little bit north. It's currently under review by the Development Review Committee, and they are working on the annexation agreement. And because there are some buildings, there's a original farmhouse as well as some farm out buildings that could have some historic potential. We are bringing this to the commission to discuss and recommend a condition for the annexation agreement as this project moves forward. It's probably, I think they're looking at taking it to Planning and Zoning Commission in March-ish. Hopefully, so March or April it would be going to the Planning and Zoning Commission. So it's about at the public hearing process. It's pretty standard to not have the annexation agreement finalized until right before that process starts. So again, in terms of vicinity map, there are two parcels that comprise this property. This is basically just from a planning perspective. This is into the road as far as developable area within the city of Longmont planning area. The planning area does technically go north a little bit farther, but everything basically from the northern boundary of this property up to the boundary of our Longmont planning area is permanently preserved open space that is owned by Boulder County. So it's either owned outright or has some sort of permanent conservation easement on it. So just for reference, you've got the Walmart here, you've got the newish Copper Peak apartments here. There is also another component of this project that is on this large undeveloped site on the east side of 287 that is not under discussion this evening because it has already been annexed into the city. So these two parcels have not been annexed into the city. So in terms of the proposed concept plan, it's a residential project. There would be some right-of-way dedicated along the 287 frontage, consistent with other parts of the highway. Higher density residential on the eastern portion of the property, lower density to the west. So this property was originally, there was an original, just if I'll give a little bit of history, and Frank and Chris can fill in details. So this project was originally, there was originally a different developer on this project, and they were looking to do lower density single family across the board. When it went to what is called an annexation referral to city council, which is basically where city council says, yeah, sure, go ahead and submit a full application and we'll look at it. At that point, it was in 2021, they said, we'd really like to see higher density along 287. We think that's more appropriate. So this is a different applicant team, and they've basically kind of taken that recommendation, and that is shaping their concept plan. So herein lies the challenge, and herein lies what's under what this commission needs to consider. So this is the originally the Thompson farm, and so not insignificant portion of the site contains original farmhouse as well as a number of original agricultural buildings, including hay barrack, chicken coops, barn, and loafing shed. So it's a pretty substantial portion of the site, and in a nutshell, not being able to include this with the development plan would essentially render the project not feasible because they wouldn't be able to get the numbers that they need. So overviewing of the resources inventory, AK Pioneer Consulting did find that there was potential for listing on the National Register of Historic Places, particularly because this was a good example of an early 20th century farm with an intact assemblage of buildings. They did also note that they recognized that preservation might not be feasible and did offer some alternative mitigation strategies. So I mentioned the location of the structures, as well as just the significant portion of the property impacting the feasibility of the proposed project. The condition of the structures is a concern of Frank and Chris. They aren't in great condition, apparently, and there are also challenges with unhoused populations that have been using them for shelter and such. So there are some concerns about the safety of the property. So what is being requested by the applicant and is basically a condition for a commemorative approach for the farm, similar to what was approved for Beaupre Farms. In that, with any type of preservation or commemoration plan, it would the typical method of a condition, the typical format for a condition would be that as part of future development review processes, they would need to develop a preservation plan of some sort that would need to then come back to the commission for final approval. So at this point, you wouldn't be recommending a specific plan aside from your preferred approach, because it's when you're at the annexation stage, we have broad concepts and the full site planning has not been done. So there is generally still some wiggle room in terms of the site planning. So that said, that's what I have. In brief, the report was a little bit more detailed, obviously. Just the alternative mitigations strategies that were recommended by the consultant would be documentation, creating a detailed record of the properties, incorporating elements of the farmstead into the design of the new development, with doing some kind of interpretive signage, et cetera, education, or developing digital resources that could educate the public about the history of the site. So that said, the applicant is requesting a condition similar to what was done for Beaupre Farms. Staff does not have a recommendation one way or another on that because that is a decision for this commission. I can appreciate both sides of the argument. There's always the ongoing question or ongoing concern of provision of housing in the city. But at that stage, I'm going to turn it over to the commission to ask questions, and I will turn the floor over to Chris and Frank to answer specific questions.
Yeah, thank you, Jennifer. Do any commissioners have questions for staff before we move on to applicant? Yeah, just go ahead and hit your. I think I got Commissioner Barnett first. There we go. Okay.
There you go. Chairman, this might be a staff question, I don't know, but in reading the information we got, I'm not sure that the feeling or the words that were expressed with Beaupre Farms were adequately expressed in the material that was given to us. I think one of the comments, and I don't know if Commissioner Norton wants to repeat it, but I'll repeat it, was that we're not the historic pictures commission, but we're the Historic Preservation Commission, and that and I think the developers from Beaupre Farms heard that, and I think we were pretty clear about it, but I don't think that comes out in anything that was presented in this. I think it was more like, well, we're going to do it like Beaupre Farm, but it doesn't express any of what was expressed at that meeting. I don't know, if anybody else had a similar question like that?
Yeah, I think let's get, oops, there we go. All right, Commissioner Haberman.
Yeah, my question is actually about if the commission does end up recommending one of these mitigating approaches, who ends up paying for that? If it goes through the whole annexation and that approach is taken, who fits the bill for that?
That would be on the developer. So just as an overview, the annexation agreement includes the developer's responsibilities for the development upon annexation. Typically includes items such as infrastructure development, water, sewer, power, stormwater, road improvements, any traffic mitigation measures, there's kind of a litany of things, and these are all things that the developer is responsible for doing as part of the development process. So, the city's pretty clear that development has to pay for itself. So,
Thank you.
Let's see. Commissioner Jacoby. Oh, all right, do it again.
There it goes. All right, thank you. Again, this is, the proposed development is being compared to the application for Beaupre Farm, but Beaupre Farm is no longer felt to be eligible for the National Register, whereas this still is. So I don't think it can be compared in exactly the same light. And I read the packet and your information and your very complete history of Longmont, and I mean, it's very thorough. And, I thought to myself, why the heck am I planning to spend thousands of dollars to travel to Europe? And I'm planning another vacation. Why? Because we want to see the history. It gives you a fourth dimension to a place. And these buildings, much more than a plaque, will present to people a reminder of what Longmont was, as well as what it is, if you can incorporate some of the buildings. Now, there's more than half a dozen buildings, and the pictures make them look relatively decrepit, of course. I was thinking, looking at the map of your proposed development, it looks nice and symmetrical and beautifully laid out and everything, but it fits in the rectangle very nice. But a good planner, just like a good architect, has to look at the strong aspects of a site as well as the weak aspects. And one of the strong aspects of this site is that it is historic, and maybe you can accommodate that. How can you accommodate that? It sounds like it might be daunting, but I was thinking, looking at the buildings, could we perhaps rearrange? You have multiple areas of parkland, as well as a drainage area in the corner of the property. Could the buildings be rearranged such that you could preserve maybe the barn? The house, yes, it has asbestos, yes, it would have plumbing and electrical problems. It'd be expensive to repair and to repurpose as an existing house, I think. And the outbuildings don't look like they're worth saving. But if you could save the barn, maybe put some park space next to it, it could even become repurposed as a community building. Community center. If you could find a way to preserve part of the property, I don't think it would, I don't know, but I don't think it would totally impact the rest of your design if you rearrange where the housing is. And I would love to see some recognition of the historic nature of the property.
Would you guys like to come up and give any kind of presentation or comment, or you're certainly welcome to?
Press the button on the three dots? No, the one next to the three dots.
All right.
Commissioners, my name is Frank DeCiano. I'm the Director of Construction with Actis. I'm a resident of Longmont, worked in Longmont for 18 years. Commissioner Jacoby, to address your concerns, we are absolutely willing to provide whatever memorial. One of the examples I gave was the Burlington Center on Delaware and Maine, where they've got a plaque and they've got 4 feet and they've got a bronze explanation that Burlington was the very first settlement, in addition to flagpole. They have junipers around there. We would never put junipers anywhere on the site. That's one thing. We've researched, for instance, the McIntosh Lake website that gives the geography and the history and the evolution of it and all that, and that's certainly doable. One of the concerns with the barn, I mean, you mentioned the highlights of the house, but one of the concerns with the barn is that the attic area is completely full of noxious fumes from 100 years of bird droppings. And the barn structurally is very dangerous. It would take a massive amount of effort to stabilize that barn. And so that's one of the issues, not to mention the fact that, so I don't think, I know the barn would not withstand being relocated. And where it is would completely devastate the development plan, especially with access, ingress, and egress off of 287, which is the current plan. We've modified the plan so that Park Ridge is out of the design. And that was in regard to Willis Heights residents' comments. So we're working with CDOT, we're working with RTD, and the ingress and egress off of 287 would absolutely be, I don't want to say eliminated, but difficult to accomplish with that. The plan calls for a traffic light at the northern boundary of the property, which is the northern boundary of Longmont. And so the ingress and egress has a certain limitation on how many feet for right in, right out. And where it's designed now, in pretty much the center where the property, the barn is, and the house is just about where the ingress and egress off of 287 has to be. And, the Willis Heights residents who are in unincorporated Boulder County are very concerned about any kind of ingress and egress on Park Ridge that goes anywhere into. So we made the decision a while ago that let's just take that off the table and spend the additional funds off of 287.
I know we've got some commissioners with more questions, but if you've got more that you'd like to just offer now, or I'll just open it up to the commission, however I don't want to take your time. I want to give you your time.
I mean, I think Jennifer did a great job of kind of setting the stage, and you obviously have the packet that has plenty of things in it. I think one thing to note is that this property was previously referred back in 1991 by CDOT, and the conclusion was that it was not eligible for the register because better examples of the same characteristics do exist. And I think one of the things that we found in our research is that, within the Longmont planning area, they have kind of planned for more urban density and renewal. And that document was done in conjunction with the county to say, here's where we're planning to develop. We want to tear these structures down. We will not interfere with your efforts to preserve things outside of it. So you can see that on all sides of this property are Boulder County open space, either owned or in permanent conservation easements. And so, one of the questions we had was there are very similar farmsteads very close to this within those already protected areas. And with the idea of preserving some element of Longmont's history as a farming area, do those properties address that need for the community? So I would ask that you consider that as well.
Thank you. Take some comments or questions from commissioners. First, I have Commissioner Tarek.
Do I have to turn? I'm on.
You're good.
Okay. Okay, so I want to kind of follow up on what Commissioner Jacoby was talking about. My concern is that we do have, I'm looking specifically at the house, okay? So the house does not take up that much acreage, right? We're not even looking at the whole area, but just kind of the footprint of the house. And according to Jennifer's report, it does meet two criterion, A and C, for preservation. And it seems to me, you're clear in your report that, you've talked about doing a plaque or something commemorative, but you actually have the house that is there. You have the history physically there. And so to take that away, to demolish that, and then replace it with a plaque, does not seem appropriate to me at all. I understand the high density, but the house is not that big. And yes, it is old, but it is definitely a house that looks salvageable. And you could work it into your plan as, you know, a community center. You could even have it as a museum. If we're really talking about preservation, you use that as a kind of museum. And I understand you say that there's better examples elsewhere, but when we use that excuse, that is our excuse to then take away these examples and demolish them, right? And so then there's no examples left. And so I think you do have the opportunity, because so many projects, you know, have nothing left on the land or structures that are beyond saving. But I think with the house, it is something that can be salvaged, that can be restored, repurposed, reused, and is much more powerful than a plaque or, you know, something, you know, commemorative. The commemorative thing is the building.
I guess I would say, Commissioner, that criterion C, the reason it was pointed out in criterion C is the entire farm and how the farm operates. So I don't believe criterion C would apply. I don't believe criterion C would apply if we just had the house. The way that they have listed it is eligible under criterion C in the area of architecture is a good example of early 20th century farm with an intact assembly of farm buildings, not just the house. In addition to that, the cost of trying to preserve that house and get people to use it as a museum, right now our estimate, we've done the asbestos estimate, the structural repairs, and we're probably up to around $165,000 to get that house in condition where it's safe and people could walk through it.
So I'm sure that's just a very, very small percentage of the money you're putting into this project. And you would still have to pay for some asbestos abatement if you demolished it, right? So that cost would be no matter what you do, correct?
Correct. Demolition cost to include asbestos is about $49,000.
Okay. And it's a very small percentage of, I'm sure, your project overall.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Switch to another commissioner's question, so let's go to Commissioner Norton next.
Okay. I have a couple of comments, but I wanted to start with a question. You mentioned that you were working with CDOT and you needed CDOT. Obviously, there's some right-of-way issues with 287, but then also the house is right in the pathway of planned egress. Is this conversation premature? Because CDOT will also be doing a historic assessment of this property if they,
Well, the 1990.
like, what's there?
The 1992 assessment was commissioned by CDOT.
Yes, sir, they would do, so, in the same way that the city asked for an updated one, typically the state kind of loose guidelines rules is if anything's more than 10 years old, especially a historic property, then they'll reassess, right? So 35 years is actually quite a long time ago for a property to have been looked at. So that's, I'm just kind of wondering what the CDOT nexus here is, because we could decide all sorts of things, and CDOT also has some additional ideas about the property or mitigation. I don't think they'll disagree with AKC, but it's just an added efficiency question.
I think part of the CDOT question is it's less about, because I don't know that they would do a 106 review for.
They do State Register Act.
They do State Register Act,
They have
even
it.
if they aren't the ones doing the construction.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, the challenge, I guess the CDOT challenge, aside from that, are the access spacing requirements.
Yeah.
That's the
Okay.
big challenge. And as the person who facilitated the neighborhood meeting where the community was, shall we say, very engaged, it would be the Park Ridge location, the Park Ridge access is removing that is probably very wise. So I'm just speaking from, this is me putting my development review hat on
Yeah.
and not putting my historic preservation hat on, so.
Well, and I'm putting my state
Yeah.
compliance hat on just
Good deal.
because that, and it shouldn't change necessarily our discussion, but there might not be able to be final decisions because other agencies might also have opinions.
We'll look into that. We've had
Okay.
numerous meetings with CDOT already, and
Okay.
it never came up.
Okay.
CDOT also has a median project that's going up and down 287. And then RTD has
Yeah.
4 acres of this project. So we're in, CDOT, RTD, there's a lot of players
Okay.
involved.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of opinions. They're all gonna, they'll come into play, I think, with both of those. You said something, the community meeting? Did historic issues come up, or was it all other issues? Like, was there
His-
community opinions about this farm?
There weren't, aside from the fact that no one wants to see anything developed.
Okay.
I mean, the key issues were traffic on Park Ridge, concerns about cut. I mean, it was a traffic question, and particularly cut through traffic to Willis Heights, but also, we bought our houses out here because there was nothing else out here.
Okay.
So it was
Yep.
pretty standard.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. And then the question before us tonight is not what mitigation would be, it's would we approve or support an annexation with a preservation plan attached to this property?
Yes, so we're asking, or the ask is for a recommended condition to include in the annexation agreement, similar to what has been done for other projects, referencing a preservation plan that would basically need to come back to the commission as part of future development review projects or applications. So preliminary plat would be probably the next time that it would probably your first step would be preliminary plat moving forward. So, once it starts entering the platting process and gets farther into the site planning, they would come back to the commission with what the preservation plan is. So,
Yep. Okay.
so basically, it's just stating the recommendation tonight would be asking, basically including a condition requiring a preservation plan if you deem it appropriate to have a preferred approach, that to put that on the record, that is one thing. But ultimately, it's just a requirement that we're going to see this again.
Yeah. So, if we move in that direction, that's what we would recommend and support. I think the recommendations that AKPC gave on page 63 are great starting points in terms of documentation, thinking about if there's ways, the way other commissioners have requested, to incorporate elements of the farmstead into the design. And then for me, 3, develop a website or other digital resources. I think that this is the 21st century version of the Burlington plaques. I think that as a historic preservation community, we're really moving towards more of a, how can we really benefit the public in terms of trying to educate them or give them access to their history. Lots of conversation about whether websites or digital resources are the best way to go. But I would personally request that you guys keep that kind of public benefit and the future residents of your development in mind for any kind of preservation program. But I do like the recommendations that AKPC put forward.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Jacoby, did you? Oh, go ahead, do it again. I got too many up here. Okay, there you go.
All right, thank you.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
You have to undo, whatever. I have very mixed feelings about plaques personally. I love plaques. I'm the guy who pulls over on the highway, and when they see that historic thing, my wife goes crazy. What are you doing again? I love to read these things, but it seems like nobody else does. I find them very ineffective. I do give a tour of the historic neighborhoods here, one tour, and I do mention the plaque of Burlington down on Delaware Avenue, just south of Burlington Village. Nobody knows about it. No one stops and sees it. No one bothers to read it. And I don't think a plaque is adequate. I think if we are honestly trying to preserve and educate people about the history, I don't think that's adequate. I'm looking right now at, it's page 16 of 79 in the packet. It says it's page 2 of this Longmont Gateway Northwest Project Study Area presentation. It's the map of what you propose. And what would really help me would be to see superimposed on this where the farm buildings are, maybe the house, but really just the house and the barn, because I hear what you're saying, that it would be difficult to incorporate one of the buildings in there, but if you just moved the 2 lowest apartment buildings up and the second from the top building to the bottom, that would give you park space right about where I think the farm is. And I think renovating a barn, yes, you could fumigate it. You know, again, the structure is visible on the inside. It's not going to be as expensive to renovate and to rehabilitate and to make use of. I still don't see how that isn't a feasible option. So I would really, do you know where on that map, if you can see it, I don't know if you can pull it up, where the farm would be on that map?
So Commissioner Jacoby, one thing I will note is that this concept plan that was shown in the AK Pioneer report is an early version of the concept plan, so
Right.
it has evolved a bit since this was developed, because this one does not reflect the access onto 287. So
That's not what's in the upper right there? Is that on this map, 280?
that was one of the access, that's the northernmost access point, but there is proposed a right in, right out, kind of central to the site.
So now it's more central, okay.
Let me do this.
If I may, I think it would be important not to get too far into the weeds on this, because these processes take so long that the design, what ends up being a final version is going to be very different from whatever the preliminary version is. So I think it's more important to keep this at a high level about what are the goals and then let other people design the thing and figure it out, right? To set the bar wherever the bar gets set, and then somebody will figure it out. But not to get into trying to solve the
Three
problem.
iterations. We've been through 3 iterations of the layout already, and we haven't even gone to planning and design. So there's more to come on that.
Well, again, I would, strongly prefer that the layout of the open space, that you have park, detention pond, if it could be arranged a 4th time, maybe to incorporate some space around one of the more significant existing structures, that I would feel much more comfortable with the plan.
Thank you. Let's see, Commissioner O'Day.
So I have a question of staff / commissioners that may be interesting, and then I have a comment. My question was, isn't there, if this is deemed historic or isn't there funding available for that on some level to help offset some of the costs of some of this? Because I realize relocating, shoring up, et cetera, but aren't there ways with tax credits or something to pay for some of that? Isn't that available? It doesn't feel like a lot of the developers we have in often know about the resources they could get.
It would have to be landmarked, right? If this is my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong. Let's say there was a desire to preserve the house or both structures, whoever. If the structures were, once this is annexed, and then they were given landmarks, so the application for landmark status come in front of the commission. If it was granted, because it's now a landmark, then that would be eligible for potentially the tax rebate associated with any of the specific restoration work for the structures. So there is a path.
So maybe.
Yes, but the landmarking does come with additional restrictions, which not everybody wants to
do.
have. So there's a give
But
and take.
potentially
But
something
there
to
is
keep in
potential.
mind if the
Yes.
cost is the big issue, which I doubt that. The other thing I was going to say was having to do with public support, which I think is always going to be interesting with a high-density project, because even though the city would like to have lots of high density, and they have said this would be great to have this high density along 287, I know from public opinion how well that's going to go over in certain groups of people, and that's going to be an uphill battle as well. Possibly saying that you're setting aside some nod to open space or some nod to preserving historic Longmont might be a PR way to approach some of those people, as, and the people who hate lots of traffic are going to always hate it. But I think that is maybe a way to say, hey, we are trying to, I live in Longmont, I do actually care about the city, this is something that we're trying to accommodate, and maybe that's a way to kind of address some of those fears as well. It might be a PR thing. So that might be a positive, developer-friendly way to, even though, yes, it could endanger the density, maybe it kind of offsets some of the public relation issues. Just a suggestion.
Commissioner Barnard.
Oh, thank you.
Okay. No, it's wrong. Red is go, green is stop.
I dig holes. What I was going to say is going back to something that you had said earlier, man in the blue shirt. I apologize, I forgot your name already. Frank. You were correct that when AKPC evaluated this property and they said that it was eligible for the landscape, essentially, the entire district, that's under National Register, and I think that for the city, for a local listing, or even for a state register listing, if some of these ideas were something that you wanted to pursue, we use the same criteria, but I think less so, right? And so I think there would be more flexibility at maybe just looking at a house or a barn, and just to kind of ease your mind from like, well, would I have to preserve the entire, thing as is, as you come up with a preservation plan to try to incorporate some of the ideas that the commission has provided. Does that make sense?
Are you referring to the structure but not the interior of the house, for instance?
Oh, there's things like that, yes. But I'm also referring to, you had said pretty much like the entire, all of the relationship of the buildings to each other, right? And so I don't think anyone, and correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think anyone on this commission is asking you to preserve, static as is every single element of that property, but find ways to maybe consider different elements. And we also don't have to think about it just in terms of everything together, the way that AKPC said that that's how it's eligible under criteria C. We have slightly different criteria for local listing in the city of Longmont.
Okay. I had a couple of comments myself. So I am a licensed architect. One of the reasons this commission is made up the way it is that it's often technical in nature, so that we're supposed to have professionals on board with backgrounds more so than just random lay people that show up. So I've been out to the site. I took a walk around.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, and obviously I didn't get a chance. I haven't walked inside the buildings and looked around, but from my perspective, just my professional perspective, looking at what I could see from the outside, I thought it was in pretty darn good shape. Like, I've seen a ton worse get put back together. I was actually really surprised how good the house looked from the outside, and the foundation and the stability and the ridge line of the roofs and so on. And so, I mean, when we get a report that says, to support the Longmont's policies for preserving historic cultural architectural heritage, the consultants recommend avoiding the demolition of the original farm structures. That's pretty strong language. It's clearly eligible, at least, in the big picture. It's really in pretty decent condition. I mean, I know you don't. I mean, everybody comes here and says we have our buildings are terrible. We got to take them down. Like, it's really. I mean, that's the perspective that you see, and from a perspective of somebody who sees a lot of really terrible buildings get put back together, it doesn't look that same, right? Okay. And so, I think this is a tall ask for this commission based on what our charge is and what our perspective is from mine. I would also make one other note. So I also watched both city council presentations that were in links to the package.
Great.
All right. And so, again, I don't think there's any issue with trying to figure out how to add density and build this thing out. That's we're not going to have any. I don't have any problem with that. I don't think anybody here does. But one of the things that got said at the very end of the second meeting by the mayor at the time was, if you want to see what we're trying to accomplish here, go to Prospect, the Prospect neighborhood in southeast Longmont. And the Prospect neighborhood in the southeast Longmont was an apple farm, an apple orchard. And it has 3 locations where existing homes were preserved. Okay. There are 2 existing houses that were on that property. They got moved and fit into the fabric of the neighborhood. And they're just interspersed in the neighborhood. Like, you just kind of wander on and find there's a little house there that looks like a little craftsman bungalow. And it was a house that was moved to one of the lots. Yep. And there's also, at the corner of Pike and 287, there is the original farmstead. And that has agricultural barns and so on it. And this commission has, in the past, nothing's happened with it, but the commission has in the past approved a reorganization of that whole little farmstead to allow for a little more development to happen behind it. Okay. Right? So that's not been preserved absolutely as is, which I think is the point. One of the points Commissioner Norton was leading to is that, we're trying to find what's really important and try to find a way to tell the story. But I also agree with Commissioner Jacoby that, a plaque and a website is nice, but if you really have an actual building that's in halfway decent shape, man, it would be a lot more meaningful to try to figure out how to make that work. So that's just my perspective as a preservation architect, which is just hard to take that hat off. I understand, and I truly do understand where you guys are coming from, because I work in that world. Yeah. But I have this hat on tonight.
Yeah. To Commissioner Lane, just as an aside, Wallace Fifth is actually in building permit process. So
okay.
we might actually see something there.
Okay. Well, that was a long time ago. Yeah. So any other commissioners have any other questions or comments? Commissioner Jacoby?
Thanks again. Yeah, I'm full of comments. Sorry about that. You mentioned that the renovation of the house would cost about $165,000. And that certainly is a lot of money to spend on renovation. But if you don't renovate the house, I'm not sure what the wholesale cost is of a new house that you would build on the site. So that might be economically a feasible option to renovate one of the homes, have it for someone to live in or make community center or whatever. But that doesn't make it economically unfeasible. That's my only thought. Thank you.
Okay. You guys have anything else you'd like to offer? Or?
We very much appreciate your time and attention to this and your comments. I mean, I think we came in here with no understanding of what you guys might say and kind of tried to think through some potential situations, and thinking about the report I think some of the language in there was this is an all or none, and understanding your thought processes and some of the priorities, I think arms us to go back and talk to our planners. And I hope you can all appreciate that we have a lot of constituencies in here that are trying to have their needs met. This is clearly one of them. It's an important one. And so I think we are now have a lot more information to be able to talk to our team about what is feasible, what can be accomplished, and understanding the priorities is really helpful to us and trying to be able to understand what we can and can't do. So,
Yeah,
thank you.
right. Well, and we very much appreciate your time coming here and listening to everybody. I truly understand you have a long road with a lot of this going on, and we
Certainly.
do appreciate the time and attention. So we are looking for some sort of action out of the commission this evening, correct?
Yes. So similar to what was done for Beaupre, we would need a motion to approve. We would basically make a motion for a recommended condition to be included in the annexation agreement.
Yeah, so a motion for a preservation plan to be included in the annexation agreement, and then if that preservation plan has any other stipulations associated with it, that ought to be clarified now. To some,
It would be
Yes.
it would be helpful. I mean, it can be as broad as a preservation plan to be approved by the commission as part of the future development review applications, or you can get a specific. You can get more specific as well. Just as a example, not saying this is the same one that you would want to do. This is the way it was worded for Beaupre Farms was the owner/developer shall prepare a plan for preservation by, this was specific to commemoration, a preservation by commemorating the historical aspects of the property through elements such as interpretive signage, on-site display, or naming features. The plan shall be submitted to the city for review and shall be substantially in conformance with the reasonable recommendations of the Historic Preservation Commission and city staff. I think in this case, you could probably just make it, you could finesse it a little bit, as determined appropriate.
Yeah, I guess my recommendation to the commission would be to acknowledge that it's highly likely that the next time this comes to this commission, that this commission is slightly different, and so communicating your intent to the future is important, because if you don't clearly communicate it, it's very likely to be misunderstood, and that can create it can also create a lot of friction for an applicant if we have given them a message that they go back and work on and then come back with a plan that meets that message, and the new commission says, well, I don't like that at all, and they didn't say anything about what they really wanted, so I want to change everything and do something new. That's not really it's not fair to the applicant, and it's not meeting your intention. So that I think I would put out there. So are any of the commissioners willing and able to offer a motion? I see Commissioner Barnard over there.
Well, I think the substance of what Jennifer's proposed meets what we said. I think we should have something in there that the proposal coming back, due consideration should be given to the preservation of some, I don't know if we want to specifically say the barn, or just say to the existing buildings being retained, and then see what comes up. But I think that would make the intent clear of what this conversation has been, pretty unanimously from the commissioners.
Here's what I'm proposing. I'm taking the language from Beaupre. I'm going to eliminate something, and I'll see if this is amenable to the commission and to the applicant. The owner/developer shall prepare a plan for preservation of historical aspects of the property with consideration given to preservation of existing structures. The plan shall be submitted to the city for review and shall be substantially in conformance with the reasonable recommendations of the Historic Preservation Commission and city staff.
Can we say buildings and structures, since technically in the
Sure.
legal parlance of historic preservation, those are two very different things?
I should have gotten you on the mic.
Sorry.
Sure.
We're good. And this is complicating things a tiny little bit, but Commissioner Norton made a comment about that, about page 37 of that report, which has recommendations, right? I mean, it's got the documentation, incorporate elements, talking about website, and it speaks to, you know, a recommendation to avoid the demolition. So referencing the recommendations in that report may be a good way to tie back.
So plan for preservation of historical aspects of the property, consistent with the recommendations of the report?
Well, no,
Tag your,
I guess because at this point, there's a level of, as Chairman Lane mentioned, indicated that at this stage in the process, it's, it needs to be fairly broad.
broad but clear.
Broad, clear, yes. Vaguely specific, shall we say?
Specifically vague.
Yes, Commissioner Terrick, you had a question.
in my opinion, I think we would want to make clear, because with those three recommendations, it was commemorative plaque, it was digital, there was nothing about, we want to make sure that we go beyond that and to say something about the preservation of the building and the structures themselves.
Commissioner, is it feasible that we eliminate structures and concentrate potentially on the house? The feasibility of moving the house to a location is feasible. I've got a little, there's a basement that's in very bad shape, and the house would have to be lifted without a slab and all that. But the barn, for instance, that barn's not going anywhere. That barn is literally a danger. So there's just no option to shore that up and move the barn. But we would look at the house and potentially relocate that house by moving it to another spot on the plan. But to say, and I appreciate your foresight into someone else 3 months from now saying, well, no, I want the barn saved.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it won't be 3 months. It'll be, if you guys are really fast, it'll be 3 months. And if it's 3 months, we'll all be here. But, this is going to go through a number of iterations. And you can see how this is challenging to get right. But I do think it's important to get right.
So let's try this one then. Okay. I'll get the exact language of the title, but basically, prepare a plan for preservation of historical aspects of the property consistent with the recommendations of the September 26, 2025 report prepared by AK Pioneer Consulting, with particular consideration given to preservation of the original farmhouse.
Straw vote?
That sounds pretty decent.
Does that work for you? Okay.
One thing I would ask is maybe that it could be relocation and preservation of the house, because one of the things we've talked about is just the location of the house isn't a particularly difficult.
So
And as we're
preservation,
trying to meet everybody's needs,
which
it'd be
could
nice.
include relocation of the property, of the house.
Yes, yes, I like that.
Of the house on the larger parcel of the house on site.
We're going to move it 10 miles away.
Okay, so
It's happened before.
Yeah.
it has
And-
happened before.
And this is
Commissioner
part
Norton.
of why I wanted to make sure that I was pointing out that a National Register level evaluation is a little bit different than a local level evaluation. So the National Register, God forbid you move anything, right? Like, it has to stay there. We can be open to that. as a commission potentially. So, yeah. So our local ideas of historic preservation, not necessarily the National Register, which if you go back to talk to AKPC, you might need to communicate to them because they'll be in a National Register mindset.
Okay. So Jennifer, do you mind reading that one more time?
Yes,
And
I'm writing it.
If we
I'm
got it
typing
right,
real quick. Just give me 2 seconds.
I was trying to give you time.
I was having to make some notes here. All right. The owner/developer shall prepare a plan for preservation of historical aspects of the property consistent with the recommendations of the Class 3 Cultural Resources Inventory of the Longmont Gateway Northwest Project prepared by AK Pioneer Consulting, dated September 26th, 2025, with particular consideration given to preservation of the original farmhouse, which may include relocation of the house on site. The plan shall be submitted to the city for review and shall be substantially in conformance with the reasonable recommendations of the Historic Preservation Commission and city staff.
Anybody want to make that motion? All right. All right. I've got a motion from Commissioner O'Day and a second from Commissioner Jacoby to accept that motion that Jennifer has just read into the record. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right. Thank you very much. There you go.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time.
Dr. Norton, it's good to see a Syracuse grad.
Oh, yeah. Are you also a Syracuse grad?
I am.
Oh, we should be best friends.
All right. Well, there you go. For those of you new to the commission, this is among the more exciting kind of things we get to do, which is all right. Thank you, Jennifer, and everyone. Let's see. So then, the only other item on our agenda for this evening would be a discussion of the retreat agenda, and I don't recall that we have a. Do we have a proposed agenda in the packet? I don't remember seeing it.
We do not have a proposed agenda.
Okay.
I was looking for the commission to propose agenda items at this evening to include on said agenda to be posted when this is noticed. One other thing I will note is we are currently working on, we have been in communication with our neighborhood coordinators, and we are trying to get in contact with folks from the Kensington neighborhood, also known as Cannery East, so that we can, and we are working diligently behind the scenes to work on a grant, to work on that SHF grant application to get the surveys done. So it involves working with finance to get the appropriation from our Historic Preservation Fund, as well as a few other things that we'll be getting focused on, that we'll focus on here. So.
Okay. Obviously, the preservation or the survey plan updates on maybe a refresher of the survey plan for anybody who's new, kind of where we're at, updates on the grant application for what we plan to do, and then maybe if you can provide any kind of overview on what you've found on the Old North. I think that would be very interesting. So that's sort of my top priority. Commissioner Norton, you've got some thoughts?
I think I bring this up every year. Are we at design guidelines point yet? Like, can we start talking about potential design guidelines for different neighborhoods? Or do we need to wait for more of these surveys? I'm only going to be on this commission so much longer.
I know. I guess I don't know, because typically design, at least in my experience, you can, if you've had different experiences, please let me know. My experience has been that design guidelines are developed as local historic districts are created. And we haven't had any interest in those, and I don't know if we would, only because it is such an uphill fight sometimes. But that's just, that's my 2 cents. If you've had different experiences, I'm more than happy to hear them.
I think we did talk about it as part of this big preservation plan, that at some point, many years ago, I had a fantasy would actually happen while I was on this commission. And now I've given up that reality. And I think at some point in my 80s, I'm going to end up back on some commission to look at the preservation plan. That's kind of how I feel about this. But maybe it'll happen sooner. So I think that's probably an uphill. Yeah, I think that's probably rough. Let's see, Commissioner Barnett.
From the last minutes, it was suggested for the retreat that we have an overview of the revised demolition ordinance. And the third item was outreach and education to the community. We might talk about something that we had said we were going to do. I don't know if just the timing isn't right yet, but some kind of a event with the city council at the tower.
Mm-hmm.
We've done all the work. Everything's done.
We
have some kind of an event there where we.
I've been playing tag with Damien here and there because I know there is a National Register plaque waiting for the Tower of Compassion. It's just been a cat herding episode, experience. And partially also cat herding on our side too. So
We're all herding cats.
it's one of those. It's on my whiteboard. So it's.
Yeah, it would seem a good idea if we could figure out a way to do that in May, or even I guess July if May gets missed because of the 150 year.
Mm-hmm.
I know it's got some weird term I can't ever remember.
Semi-sesquicentennial.
Wow.
100 years.
Yes.
I heard a lot.
Okay. Yeah. Let's see. Commissioner Jacoby, do you have some comments?
Yeah, thank you. I was trying to think of retreat ideas. One thing I mentioned last time, and you said it might be an idea for the retreat, is discussing the feasibility of expanding the historic East Side National Historic District. I don't know how big a job that would be. It might add a little more hesitation to developers to not scrape and rebuild buildings. They've taken out 2 historic buildings now, one on Emery, one on Kimbark. So I think that might be worth talking about. Other things, Historic Preservation Month is coming up. We could always say, anyone have any ideas? And then my other issue, which I've tried to bring up several times, is Certificate of Merit. And what is it? Can we make it usable rather than a booby prize to give to people? I think we have houses that come in front of us that aren't grandiose homes. They're historic somewhat. They still have the architecture. I guess we have to decide what we want a landmark to be to some degree. Is it just a historic home, or is it truly a landmark in the city? And if there's a smaller but otherwise historic home, could we give them a certificate of merit that means something? We can't give them the tax breaks, but we can give them the permit waivers that the city gives also for landmark homes. So that would give them a little carrot on a stick in exchange for some control over the exterior appearance of homes. I think that would be a tool we could develop and use. So I still think that's worth thinking about if people are interested.
The other, you could put a little placeholder for any quick review of anything that comes out of Saving Places as well, right? Because we're all going to come back from that, and there are going to be a bunch of ideas thrown around, and it might not be actionable, but at least there could be some discussion time. Let's see, Commissioner O'Day.
I just had one quick suggestion because it's my area of expertise and my interest is kind of the mid-century 50s, 60s thing. I know you guys have done all these plans and everything. I don't know how much of that, because I'm still kind of catching up, includes any of those more recent past preservation and how much we're doing to look at saving motels and cool neon signs and such. I don't even think there are a whole lot of them around. So that would be something else that I guess I want to throw out in my 2 cents worth, because I don't know how much that comes up in this group. So, and how much we've looked at it.
Yeah, no, that's fair. We don't get a lot of, we have looked at a couple of signs in historic districts over the period that I've been on this, a couple of freestanding and building mounted signs, but they've been mostly downtown, in part because there is no historic district. I mean, there's no regulation, right? So there's no reason for somebody to be required to bring it here. But yeah, it's a fair point. Any other thoughts for items of discussion? It feels like that probably could take up 3 hours.
It seems, yeah. It's pretty meaty.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
and just as a recap, we will be at the same time, same place as last year. So Callahan House, 1 to 4 p.m. We do have the space reserved until 5. So Maria and I have a cushion for setup and breakdown.
Okay. All right. Thank you for getting that set up. All right. So wrapping up the evening, this is our opportunity for any other sort of miscellaneous comments from HPC commissioners. Commissioner Jacoby.
Here I go again.
Very reliable.
Well, aren't I though? Don't know when to stop. But since we do have new commissioners, you may know or may not that I have a book I made of the historic East Side. And who doesn't have a book yet? I'd be happy to give you one. You guys.
on your tour, but I don't have a book.
Well, here. So, there you go. Merry Christmas. And actually, in there is the map. In there shows the outline of the National Historic District, and you can see the map of the whole tour, and you can see how small the current historic district is in relation to the historic homes on the east side. So, which might be pertinent for when we get together. But otherwise, just enjoy it at your risk, at your leisure.
Thank you, Commissioner Jacoby. Commissioner O'Day.
Well, see, I'll try to rival your amount of comments. I actually didn't mention this last time, but I have now been on a podcast twice. It's called Coffee with Jim, and he's a guy who's written like 12 books on Route 66, and this is the 100th year anniversary of Route 66. So I have been on a couple of times. I have a blog that I've had for years. It's Mid-Century Style Magazine. And I also have a sub thing that's Retro Road Trip that's historic places to stay, kind of quirky, funky, cool places to stay that are not real expensive. So anyway, he's had me on as an expert twice now, and it's a fun podcast. If anybody's interested, I can send links, but it's kind of fun. Every Sunday morning at 7 a.m., which, yeah, you can listen to it recorded.
Sounds good. All right. Any other commissioner comments? Commissioner Barnett?
They're just talking about Route 66, and I read the packet that we just got, and there was a lot of stuff in there about Route 66 that I didn't know. So I'd suggest if you hadn't gotten to that part yet, you'd really enjoy it.
Yes, thank you. I was actually really surprised how in-depth that report went on the front end. Yeah, that was really, it was cool, but I was a little shocked about but yeah.
I just had a random thought pop in my head as we're talking about podcasts. Did I mention at the January meeting about the Burn Order podcast? So Rachel Maddow's new Burn Order, her newest podcast, Burn Order, is about Japanese internment camps, and there is like half of one of the episodes that is dedicated to Governor Ralph Carr and his story here in Colorado. So yeah, it's a very interesting story. He basically tanked his political career because he was so opposed to the camps and doing the right thing. So, Melanie, do you remember which episode that is? Because you've listened to it more recently than I have. It's like the 3rd or 4th episode, but it's like there's like fully half of the episode is about Ralph Carr.
Yeah, there's about 3 episodes that lead up explaining the history and the tensions. But there's one, I would say almost the whole episode is focused on, particularly in Colorado and Governor Carr. It was just very interesting.
Oh, great. Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Okay, any other comments? No? All right, thank you. We do not have our city council rep here this evening, as we noted, but we got his comments in earlier. So we are now ready for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I'll second.
Okay, so that is a motion moved by Commissioner Barnard and seconded by Commissioner Norton. All those in favor of adjournment, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, thank you all. We are adjourned.